Mark will be in. So this just goes to prove you can do Facebook.
Sorry, Cassandra, I ended up muting you too.
Oh, that's okay. I need muting occasionally. Hang on, I'm just going live on Facebook. It's a sunny day here, in case you can't tell. It's kind of hot. I was listening to people convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, and I should be able to do that, but I can't. So here we go. Bellamy, shush.
Is she named after David Bellamy?
No, it's a he, and he's named after an American writer who had Edward Bellamy, who had the book I can't remember now. My husband named
Backwards, it's called.
Yeah, looking backwards. I knew have backwards in it. Yeah, it was a really big hit, but unfortunately not in Australia, but he loves it. So he called him after that. Hello to all my favorites here. Cindy, Bob, DeWitt, John as usual. John's my man. All right, Mark, over to you.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the second day of the SurVision weekend. Yesterday we had Charles Borkers, George Calamaris, Charles Kell, Tony Kitt, Tony Riccio, and Mark Vincennes, myself. Today we have Clayre Benzadon, Alison Dunhill, Helen Ivory, Dominique Hecq, Andrew Joron, and Jake Sheff. And shortly we'll commence with that fantastic grouping of poets. But before then, I'm going to introduce you guys to one of my favorite people in the world, Jeff Cyphers Wright, who is an amazing writer of poetry and a great networker of people. And here's Jeff's bio. Jeff received his MFA after studying with Allen Ginsberg. He's best known as a new romantic poet. He's also a publisher, critic, eco-activist, impresario, filmmaker, puppeteer, and artist. He's author of 19 books of verse, including Blue Liar and Party Everywhere. His poems have appeared in the Cafe Review, New American Writing, the Brooklyn Rail, the Hurricane Review, Posit, and his recent work also appears in the anthologies Best American Poetry, New York Insiders, and Contemporary Surrealist and Magical Realist Poetry. His latest work, a book of sonnets and artwork, is called Doppelgangster and is out from Mad Hat Press. And he just recently won the 2023 James Tate Award from SurVision. So we're expecting another book from them. And thanks, Tony. And Jeff also publishes Live Mag. Go for it, Jeff.
Thank you, Mark. What a series. This has been like 5 years, going on 5, 6 years. Thank you, man. And I have enjoyed these so much, listening to people and learning and expanding my own work. And this poem begins with a little epigraph by Hugh Seidman, the late Hugh Seidman, that I heard Norm Finkelstein, I believe, somebody was reading it here. And it says, dust blows over the statues. And yet, as does the shoe fly, so too does the crow fit. No one is above the periwinkle atrium bonnet you keep in a magic adage hidden away from rogue elves and spamiflage accounts. We all snore alone in the parliament of laments. Leaves crackle underfoot, cracking a codex. Two starlings spar over a measly scrap. The coat of many tails has but one end. And yet, we inherit the dew of nymphs. We strain against our harnesses, coupling as midnight pirouettes in its blue cupola. A pound of hammer, a candy heart. Whatever you say is part wish, part built-in ache, the ghost of a parrot, a real marble cake. You guys are inspiring. I was so embarrassed. I was wondering how many people did I steal one of their like morphs in there? Anyway, thank you very much. Let me introduce the hostess with the mostest here. Cassandra Atherton is an award-winning prose poet and international expert on prose poetry. Her prose poetry is widely anthologized and has been translated into Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Cassandra has published more than 30 books and is currently writing an illustrated book of prose poetry on the Hiroshima Maidens with funding from the Australia Council and the Victorian government. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry, an introduction, and co-edited the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She's commissioning editor for Westerly Magazine and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia. And I hear she's working on an ekphrastic book of acrostic poetry.
No.
All right, Cassandra, please welcome.
Hi, everyone. As I said, I'm in my car just outside the vet because my cat just has a checkup. Nothing serious, but it's the only appointment that I could get. And as I'm in the future in Australia, so it's Monday morning here, it's a work day. I would like to read a poem. I did read it once a while back, but it's just been in the newspaper here. So in the Australian on the weekend, and I'm very proud to have it in such a kind of eminent newspaper. So it's called Null Allele. Inside the corridor of Tory, I'm between vermilion moments. There are no purple spots on my body, but you fill my pockets with sand, so I'm an hourglass, an egg timer, a gilded half-hour sand glass. At the Grand Prince Hiroshima Hotel, you open the curtains, and we have long sex on the short couch. I watch our reflections float above the Seto Inland Sea and frill-like waves rolling up the back of your legs. A cylindrical pillow bolsters my hips and I count the 17 exons I'm missing in your final thrusts. Early morning at the Peace Park, the Hibakusha asks, what's 3 meters long, 0.7 meters in diameter, and weighs 4 tons? So, thank you. And the answer to that one is the atomic bomb. I would like to introduce the incredible Mark Vincennes, who is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He's published over 30 books of poetry, translations, and fiction, including more recently 39 Wonders and Other Management Issues, The Pearl Diver of Urunmani with White Pine Press, A Splash of Cave Paint with Spite and Dival, and a chapbook, An Alphabet of Last Rites with Chavina Barber. The King of Prussia is Drunk on Stars is forthcoming in January 2024 from Lavender Ink. And I said yesterday, go check out the amazing cover on his Facebook site. And it's forthcoming, in January 2024 from Lavender Ink. Later that year, The Visitation, a novelette, is from SurVision. So SurVision is killing it again. Mark is also a prolific translator, and he's translated from the regulars know this: German, Romanian, and French. He has published 11 books of translations, most recently an Audible Blue, selected poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist, you know his name, Klaus Merz, which just won the 2023 Massachusetts Book Prize for Translated Literature. His own work has been translated into many languages, including Japanese, Chinese, Russian, French, Italian, Romanian, Greek, German, and Icelandic. He is currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincennes is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. He has lived all over the world. Join in from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural Western Massachusetts, overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are more false potato beetles, hickory hair streaks, and keeled tree hoppers than Homo sapiens. Mark, I'm sure you've got something wonderful to read while my cat tries to escape his cat carrier next to me.
This is called 3 Things About the Man and the Macintosh. Suffering your holy wisdom. He streams forth his knowledge, whatever that is. He knows an elephant sits on his imaginary tail. Even as his raincoat tails flutter in the drizzly wind, he suffers your knowledge. He accounts for everything in his plaid and tan. What is needed from him is the primordial nugget. He knows this and stands on a bridge overlooking the murky river as yesterday's flotsam conflates with today's jetsam. His second skin prevents him from anything that might drench him. Even the newsprint is damp, and the gaslights at night, ignited by a man in a tin boat, haunt him. He sees Roman sandals, dusty toes far into the history in his mind. He's on a knife edge when he steps on the balustrade. and his memories bring back Catherine and Imbroglio on the bridge of sighs overlooking Hemingway's bar. Secretly, he remembers the 7 martinis and the smell of your hair like dog fur. He has scribbled on a blank sheet of paper. He has drawn your face with a halo. Gold standard. Whatever comes from the heart of the sun must be of unimaginable value. At 10,000 degrees, everything seems irrational. Just watch the fish below, he tells himself, imagining he has a long nylon line with multiple worms and hooks. Now he has the time to place the bait and reel them all in, like a sphere. He'd cast himself to the stones, tumbled in that simplicity, smooth, capital, divested in geology, the digs and stains that indicated convulsions, cast outs, stirred ups, churning, the well wishers too. And still, the water convulses. Anyone who works for the president knows this. And now I'm going to hand the mic over to my good friend and co-host, Jeff Wright, Jeffrey Cyphers Wright, who will be handling the bios today with me as a second. Unmute, Jeff.
Right. That was terrific, Mark. Thank you, man. We're all working for the president in a way. You know, he's like our president, the president.
Exactly. The president of the free world, he's been called, you know. The free world. What does that mean? Yeah.
And also working for the precedent. You're crazy.
Always.
All right. Next up, we have Clayre Benzadon, who is a University of Miami MFA graduate student alumni and a graduate of Brandeis University. Her chapbook, Liminal Zenith, was published by SurVision Books in 2019. She is formerly the editor of Sinking City magazine and currently a poetry reader for Split Lip magazine and Broadsided Press's Instagram editor. She's been published by a great list of magazines here: the Acentos Review, Her Story, Rat's Ass Review, Poetry Breakfast, Fairy Tale Review, Hobart, Mudroom Magazine, Kissing Dynamite, The Great SurVision, etc. She was awarded the 2019 Alfred Boas Poetry Prize for her sequence entitled Linguistic Rewilding. Please welcome Clayre.
Is Clayre here? Well, that's the question. I don't see her. We might have to move on. Yeah, we'll have to come back. Let's go to Alison Dunhill. What say you?
Okay. I was just going to say, what a list of magazines though, right? Fairy Tale Review. Okay, Alison Dunhill. First published pamphlet by Transgravity Advertiser at age 20. Alison Dunhill has pursued a career as a visual artist, interspersed with the writing and publishing of poetry. Joe Soap's Canoe, number 15. She spent a few years researching and writing an MPhil thesis, a Master of Philosophy's thesis on Francesca Woodman and how FW was influenced by European interwar surrealism. Recently, her poetry has been published in the Finland Poetry Journal, and that's Finn with the F-E-N, like one of those old English words, right? SurVision, Propel Magazine, and the recent anthologies Contemporary Surrealist and Magical Realist Poetry, January 2023, and the Anthology of Tangential Surrealist Poetry, August 2023. She won the James Tate Prize in 2020 for her chapbook As Pure as Coal Dust, published in 2021. She launched this chapbook at the Fermoy Gallery in Kings Lynn in October 21. She read her poems in Chicago's Lakeside to London open mic in May 2022. Dunhill was the headline poet at Eli's Finn Speak at the Babylon Gallery in March 23, and she was featured poet at the Kings Lynn Poetry Festival in September, alongside Pascal Petit, Hugo Williams, and George Surtees. She's currently working on a poetry collection, of which a section will be an ekphrastic response to 1970s US photographer Francesca Woodman's images. Alison Dunhill. Let's see what's happening here. Oh, there we go.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay. This poem is called Fragments. In the night's walls, caterpillars of memory. In the crowd, the man's egg-head apple blossom. On the journey, blackthorns straggled, cow parsley clouded, larch dangled hedge. In their passages, nerves flicker, directed light bulbs. On the river, a wasp's wreath lost in green. Over Hope's wide lake, a bridge of energy. Under the rust heads of sorrel, a throbbing toad. In the uncut barley field, red tractors, yellow combines. On the high sea barrier over the salt marsh, Giacometti sculptures. In the refrigerator, pink cartons of discovery. On the backs of sheep in evening sun, stripes of milk. Along the arterial road, hoovers of despair. This one's called You Make Me Feel Brand New. And what if an entirely new sensation struck at each intercontinental railway station, glittered and fast flickered my wrist veins, my femur and my pancreas, splattered my aortic valve, splintered my cranium, dispersed my shoulder blades in bougainvillea fragments over Bologna's beautiful Alidosi Bridge? Would I still rear as your throne lassos perfectly gird me? Then you stand on the filigree balustrade of Verona, surrounded by lotus flowers, lotus flowers. I have thrust and wriggled out of my old form and left its skin mottled and crisp in wet snake grass. I am new, forms welded, muscles toned. You gaze down at me from the precipice. I shine you the thousand lights of the Zurich Zee. This poem, hopefully, is the first one of my collection to be, of which I've written only 4 poems so far. The ekphrastic theme is on Francesca Woodman. Some of you may have heard of her. I'm sure maybe all of you. Francesca's book. Rivulets of satin fold into the contours of the sea. We speak of the moon. She clings in monkey stance to the fluted iron lamppost. And I think it's Calliope over there, standing, scroll in hand, by the white molded door, reminding us of poetry. Now the wide ribbon makes an arch over the antique page's script, flying over its copper plate, and 2 late 20th century girls lean into each other to form a heart. They hold the ribbon in high twist, their bodies are supple and toned, and the rolled scrolls they hold are tiny ribbon tied. The eagle wears an antique pearl choker. It's down from its mahogany pedestal, and it flies in circles over the turquoise sea. It flies in a bright rhomboid of light, made of 24-karat gold, sinews and talons. The eagle brings dried rose heads and half a pomegranate to them in its terrifying beak. Now the dark beam of almost night fades out the white molded door as the pleats of her vintage dress form a nervous concertina. We speak again of the moon. Soon the book's pages are blank, their copperplate script gone. At the page's top, the ribbon's short diagonal is held tight and wide. A votive trio of sea coral, sheep fleece, and rose quartz under the window is lit by the blue moon, offering She sits in the half light, wears a pillbox hat and a Persian lamb coat. She writes her response to the early century Roman student, acting out the part with quill pen and silver-topped ink pot. This time, her feet are in a basin. Apostrophes of tiny fish wild swim on the page map over the sepia ink, over the tributaries of words from the century before, and over her wet legs. Calliope has left her scrolls around. Can the poetry be epic? Sorry, I'm reading from different things. On the wing, beard of stars, starbeard, babastel. A little white beard distinguishes you from pipistrelle and de Monton and ceratine. It sprouts under your face's dark brown fur. This face is a corbel to fend off evil spirits from the west portal of Chartres, an aging ET with a tiny squash nose, black, round, shiny eyes, and enormous white-edged ears needed for echolocation, your tracking of insect nightlife. This combination of fur and wing disturbs like good surrealism. Your tessellated wings in outstretch are so fine, they must have inspired Buckminster Fuller's geodesic dome, or at least the umbrella. And yes, you are a quadruped. Your front and back stump limbs elongate elegantly into two rapturous wings, huge when compared to your kind of cozy furred body. The three angled divisions of each wing are surfaced in honeycomb mottling. You are the only mammal to fly. This is, after all, a miracle. Cloud construction. Lines of crystal strewn over wonder mesh, stars in the night sky, constellations of city lights on islands on a night flight, wonder mesh clouds, plaster and textile clouds, hanging and light-filled, moving in space, their transparency stopped by small bits of consumer waste. Blue clouds, black cloud in netting or mesh, threads stretched, draped and coiled with flowers and leaves on silk d'Avoray remnants, mini clouds in textile pierced plaster, a flock of flying wall duck clouds, nebulous edges of unmolded plaster, studded with copper pipe, glass beads, volcanic craters in symmetry, miniature Doric columns with colored, ribbon-tied, tiny scrolls, temple of Segesta, my columns encasing secrets in their scrolls, a nod to ancient writing templates, each scroll a small unit in a growing multiple. White pillars, gold pillars, wild flying, multi-textile green pillars, clouds made by pouring plaster onto sand piles, gouging, paint streaking, embedding the plaster form with glass, metal, and textile offcuts, working fast before the plaster dries. City street bits, squashed and bent by 1,000 lorries in Rio, a rusty pile of the disused, once useful. Dull aluminium, verdigris copper, bright new copper, duller brass, matte zinc. Cheap tin glints like silver, silver coated plastic. Okay, I'm going to end with this one. Ice moon. I pull back from falling into the rocked crevice of love by girding my loins with a cloth of words soaked in wax and bitumen. I skate dance on ice, a solitary star, backgrounded by Canary Wharf's skyline. I dazzle, my feet spark, they're hung with bells. You watch from every corner in turn, unimpressed, eating ice cream. While the Thames tide turns, questions flash crossette fireworks on the horizon. Will the famous bridge rise? Is the moon full? Are you ready? Do you want another one?
Thank you so much, Alice. And I do want another one, by the way. Thanks so much. Next, we hear from Tony Kitt, who's going to read a couple of Clayre's poems. She was unwell and was unable to make it, so yeah, Tony's going to read on her behalf. Unmute, Tony.
Yeah.
John, can you make me co-host?
Do you, yes, hold on a second here.
Hello.
Go for it, Tony. Go for it.
Oh, you can hear me. Great.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm so sorry that Clayre can't read tonight. She's a terrific reader, by the way. I read with her 2 years ago, my first lead Balm appearance, and I really enjoyed it. Her reading. I'm going to read 2 poems that appeared in SurVision in 2017. I think she was one of the first poets that we published. It was one of her first publications altogether. I'll start off with a poem called Honeydew. Honeydew silence. Outside the weeds, taste honey, lie wedding dew, new lines settled into a different abandon. First feel of breath current. Certain things rent out surrender, like a den without its rooster, storeless rest. I've seen summer become senile before. Now harvest saves nectar rest over grass labor. A comb, suckle, care of another suckling, wild boar, drinking, determinate, caring, need and near.
John, sorry to interrupt you. I think we better start again because we're getting all sorts of sounds. Someone needs to make me co-host, or John, can you please mute everybody except for Tony?
Yes, okay, I'll do that. Sure, thank you. Yeah, I can't make you co-host, Mark. Adam Cornford is actually the host here.
Yeah, I already asked him, but he's not responding. I don't know. Adam, you need to unmute yourself. Sorry to interrupt.
I am now unmuted. And what do you want me to do?
Yeah, could you make me co-host?
I'll have to see how to do that. I've never really done that. I mean, I've been on a bunch of Zoom things, but I've never actually hosted one. So
I'll say click on the participant icon on the bottom of the screen, and then then you'll see Mark's. They'll bring up like a little menu. You'll see Mark's name. You can right click. You can click on the 3 dots by Mark, and that should give you a thing to make him a co-host, I think.
all I'm getting when I do that is invite with 3 dots, and then copy invite link. That's when I click on participants.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's not deal with this right now.
Apologies.
Why don't we, John, from your side, can you please mute everybody except for Tony, and let's continue?
Yeah, I'll mute everybody. Tony might have to unmute again.
Okay, and let's start from beginning because there was.
And I muted Mark too. Sorry about that. Tony, one shot. Unmute.
Yeah. Unmute, Tony. Tony, unmute. There you go. Okay, now please go ahead with Clayre's work.
I'll go again. Yeah. Right. So I'm going to read two poems by Clayre Benzadon, who is one of the first poets we've published. And it appeared in SurVision in 2017, so nearly 7 years ago. The first one is called Honeydew. Honeydew silence. Outside the weeds taste funny, lie wedding dew, new line settled into a different abundance. First feel of breath current. Certain things rent out surrender, like a den without its rooster, storeless rest. I've seen summer become senile before. Now, harvest saves nectar vest over grass labor. A calm, suckle, care of another suckling, well bore, drinking determinately, tearing neat and near until milk turns into honeydew. That was the first. And the second is called Ephemera. In one day, a mare rams into a hare, seizes it, pares its skin with her teeth. She bows into dimness, peers into hampered eventide to find ephemeron, mayfly, double adult, and life cycle life fished, with bucktail handled by a figure's black cast, tip of the rod upwards, leaving surface dark on a young blue giant, blue fish turned into rare star. Calm burns there above in the blue shifted sky, where polar rabbits' tracks are blue printed, tied with the blood knot. There, the atmosphere shifts through multiple stages of development in stars, nymphal form, fossilized, like the insect, hatched into plasmatic matter, until it passes, charging through, attaining imago.
All right.
Clayre Benzadon.
Thank you, Tony, for reading that. And thank you, Clayre, for your wonderful work. Sorry you couldn't be here today. And next we hear from Helen Ivory, who is a poet and visual artist. She lives in Norwich with her husband, the poet Martin Figuera. She edits the webzine Ink, Sweat and Tears and is poetry tutor for UEA National Center for Writing. She's won an Eric Gregory Award, and her fifth Blood Axe books collection, The Anatomical Venus, was shortlisted for the East Anglian Books Award and won the East Anglian Writers by the Cover Award. The Anatomical Venus examines how women have been portrayed as other, as witches, as hysterics with wandering wombs, and as beautiful corpses cast in wax, or on mortuary slabs and TV box sets, and is available from Blood Axe. Fool's World, a collaborative tarot with the artist Tom DeFreston from Gatehouse Press, won the 2016 Saboteur Award for Best Collaborative Work. Hear What the Moon Told Me, a book of collage and mixed media acrylic painted poems, was published by Knives, Forks and Spoon Press in 2016, and a chapbook, Maps of the Abandoned City, published by SurVision in 2019 of January. And her newest book is Wunderkammer, New and Selected Poems, published in the US by Mad Hat Press. And her next collection, Constructing a Witch, is due from Blood Axe in 2024. Welcome, Helen.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Tony, for publishing this, Maps of the Abandoned City. I'm going to be reading a few poems from this. It came out in 2019, so it's the before times, basically. So Maps of the Abandoned City, I'll read from the back of the book. Maps of the Abandoned City imagines a place deserted by its makers. Mirrors are starved of human life, creatures cut loose, and the dark comes home and takes off his boots. So these are some poems from that. And so I wrote this before the pandemic, before the, you know, when streets weren't deserted. So the first poem in the book, yeah, none of these poems really have introductions, so I'll just read through a little bit of punctuation maybe between them. So, in a time before maps. Long ago, when the city was an infant, it lay on its back on a big white sheet, transfixed by the tiny articulations of its own small hands. Constellations of eyes beheld from the sky, the city grew vivid, grew hearty, grew schools and grew graveyards, and when these were replete, it grew more. Straw begat sticks, then stick begat brick, so the wolf packed its bags and decamped to the forest. The city sprouted a gate and then locked it. Even the city became lost in those days, took itself for a wander inside its own head and simply vanished. Something had to be done. The cartographer stepped from a fold in the sky. The cartographer invents herself. Thunder loped across the sky's wilderness, and clouds stumbled around, then fixed upon an almost shape. The cartographer feels her hands for the first time, lifts them to her face, and then expertly molds her own eyes. She draws the roads that will carry her blood and the pathways to order her ribcage, then hollows out a playground for her breath. This is Streets of the Abandoned City. The street of the candle maker runs slant to the river, where time is detained in slight tallow bodies, moored up in ragboats awaiting the tide. The street of the illusionist was never there, or so it would have you believe, an empty black bag in a vat full of pitch. The street of the graveyard is lined with books, with symbols and scorings no one can decipher, and carvings of cherubs too weighty to fly. The street of the birds is a vault of locked cages, each inhabitant rendered to feather and bone. Wind blusters through keyholes to parody song. The street of the kings wears a crown of eye teeth, plucked from the jaws of anonymous dogs. The street of the dogs was scratched from the map. So here, this poem is The Hungry Mirrors. And so if nothing is happening in a city, if no people, so the mirrors are going to be hungry because they've got nothing to do or eat. The hungry mirrors. The mirrors of the abandoned city are hungry as hungry can be. At least the lakes have a belly full of sky. At least the ponds are heavy with livestock. These days, it's drawn blinds, empty changing rooms, and the chirruping crickets they have no ears for. Once, a spider hauled itself down by a thread, and they gorged on it frantically like someone lost in the desert. Are those starveling servants of vanity? We must pity them in their lean days, when all eternity is an empty greatcoat in the maw of an unlit corridor. I write a lot about the dark, and here's one of those. Nights in the abandoned city. Dark comes home to the abandoned city and heaves off its boots by the fire. It is astonishing how weary the dark is from its work, its commute through choking towns and encampments. It talks to the flames of the things it has seen, of the stilled hearts it has held between finger and thumb. It unburdens itself of all human sorrow. And the fire, pretending for now it is a hearth at the centre of a church house, listens like a priest and bites its own tongue, imbues the parlour with cloying incense. In the shadow play, the dark is a plague doctor's mask, a bone saw, a gathering of spat out teeth. Soon fire will describe a still life of eyeglasses, their tiny infinities, all their dashed lenses. This poem is it's a 9-line poem. It's currently I'm in England. Okay, so it's currently it's on the underground. So it's on. We have poems on the underground, and it's going around trains at the moment. Who's that? Hello, is someone talking? Anyway, maybe it's me. Maybe I heard myself going round and round. Maybe I was on the circle line. Anyway, so this poem is the square of the, and I haven't actually seen it in real life. I haven't seen it on the train. People keep sending me images of it when it's lovely to see. So the square of the clockmaker. When the last train left, the tunnel rolled the train track back into its mouth and slept. Clocks unhitched themselves from the made-up world of timetables and opened wide their arms. And in the square of the clockmaker, a century of clocks turned their faces to the sun. Music of the abandoned city. In the street of sunk melodies, the sky is a scrim of leaves on black water. A monkey huddles on a riverboat, dismantling the barrel organ pressed to its belly, removing the pins with long-nosed pliers and casting them overboard. The river runs its fingers over the notes as it catches them and swells to the banks with a babel. The art gallery clears its throat and holds forth to the symposium's audience of 120 stacking chairs, a water cooler with 7 plastic cups and a broom. It is therefore a given that these old masters are shorn of their aesthetic and monetary value when there are no human eyes to feast here. It continues, finding its stride. The water cooler gurgles crankily in response. The broom agitates the dust while the faces on the walls look as they have looked for tongue-tied centuries. This is the zoo, and I think in this poem, so the rescued animals are the cute ones, they're the fluffy ones, so the ones that are a bit dangerous and possibly a little kind of not aesthetically beautiful, they're getting a bit angry. Zoo of the abandoned city. With the biddable and winsome gone, the zoo is a graver place of sharp eyes and fangs. The small and portable are peaked, they've been deserted here, and funnel spiders have long memories. Cages were unlatched, the keepers will not be stuffed all, so everyone is free to come and go at their own leisure and, well, peril. Caimans have made Monkey Walk a no-go zone. Inmates are balanced on their nerves, like high wire acts within a wide cupola, are scrappily made effigies of themselves, held out to the rain that leans in before continuing its rounds. I have 2 more. This is luncheon in the, I love the word luncheon. We shorten it to lunch, of course, but okay, luncheon in the abandoned city. There have been no hands to wind clocks for months now. Thus, restaurants rely on instincts and the shadows on the pavements to signal when to prepare for service. Only salt and pulses remain, so ladles spend the morning meeting them out in melancholy portions onto row upon row of poker-faced plates. At noon, cutlery goes through the motions, a mechanical dance of luncheon, gnashing salt into powder, agitating the pulses till the gong shudders and they all fall down. So lots of things happen. So the cartographer, she appears a few times, and this is towards the end of the book where she unmakes everything. The cartographer unmakes. It's snow that gives her the idea, bleaching parks of desire lines and blotting out coffin paths. With a white paintbrush, she makes a halo of the ring road and cancels out the tower blocks and castle. And when there is no one left to remember the city, when all has turned to fireside yarns and myth, a traveller will open out some spotless pages of the map and imagine Lady Fortune shines on him. That's me. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, Helen, Ivory, thank you. That was great. The Hungry Mirrors, what imagery. And a big shout out there to Martin too, who's with us today, right? And I'm going to introduce Dominique Hecq. And Dominique she grew up in the French-speaking part of the Belgium. Was that the Walloons? That's such a great language, that. And now she lives in Melbourne, Australia, and writes in English and in French. She's published a novel, 6 collections of her short stories, and 13 books of poetry and chapbooks, including After Cage, Composition and Word and Movement on Time and Silence, from Liquid Amber Press in 2022. And most recently, the prose poetry sequence entitled Songlines from Hedgehog in 23. She was a recipient of the Martha Richardson Medal for Poetry in 2006 and the International Best Poets Prize from the International Poetry Translation and Research Center in conjunction with the International Academy of Arts and Letters. Dominique Hecq. Take it away.
Morning, thank you. I'm going to read from this little chapbook published by SurVision this year. It's called Endgame with No Ending, and won the James Tate Poetry Prize. So I'll start with that. Cursive. I hate Times Roman, love chance recursive. Love chance, love gallivanting around the world. Chance recursive captures how the hand runs across the page, how letters get excited at the beginning of a piece, how they flourish in movement. Cursive leads the light, echoes my chambers and smells of honeysuckle. It gives body to sans serif. Chance recursive takes off like writing, in which the letters are joined and formed rapidly without lifting the nib of your pen, from the French cursif, from the medieval Latin cursivus, from the Latin cursus, all running words. Even the past participle currere means to run, from the Indo-European root kers, that always reminds me what a curse a running hand is. Chance recursive is a marathon runner. It is tall and lean. It lives vertically, although it does not embrace the wind in its course. It thrives on air, blood and water, seeds and nuts, breeds dream begotten strokes, forms, letters. See how they run away from Times Roman. And the entombment. In the sky, blubbering sea stands entombed a dead alive elephant with sawn tusks under a dome of azure sky. The elephant looks through me with pectat lapis lazuli eyes. Its accusatory stare reaches not only beyond the sea, but also beyond the horizon that bleeds into violet stars strewn on the crust of the earth. This could be a still from a Disney cartoon, a photograph from Fantasia after the apocalypse, a hologram portending impending doom. I want to coax out the blue, but it would take days to knead and press and squeeze a dough of powdered lapis, wax, resin, and linseed oil. Besides, the water is frozen and I have no wood ash. I'm Queen Boadicea, dunked in wood, cobalt, oxide, wailing for a child I never had. I'm a stone Buddha facing Ganesh. I'm Kubla Khan, turning midnight blue. I'm a petrified bird of paradise shooting through the Anthropocene. The elephant charges, waves crash. I'm the Mount Lebanon blue butterfly smashed to smithereens. I'm a dancing matter that does not matter. I'm ultramarine, utter darkness. I'm a mind unminding itself, entombing itself. I'm ash in the sunless sea, sinking in tumult to a lifeless ocean. I'm molecules of oxygen and hydrogen. I'm particles of dust in frozen H2O. In this inky pleasure dome with caves of ice, I'm nameless. And then I'd like to read the last poem of another chapbook titled Chaosmos. It has a bit of a salad of languages. Alone with the dark, an odor of seaweed, whiff of oil, open face from littoral to ocean, earth to firmament, day a sunken boulder on dry sandbar. The horizon lies flat on your hand, underfoot squeaky sand, plastic scraps to glide onto, a dead seal alive with maggots, night glass water. The Milky Way drinks you with a cosmos. Shh, a chirp, blue moon thrust against the sky. You lower your gaze, the sea froths at the river's mouth. A taste of salt, spray and spume on the surface of the water, white caps everywhere. You dive, surface, paddle, plow the water as you would word soil. Strike the waves harder and harder. You are a rider of white horses rolling in. The storm gathers momentum. And the sun slowly climbs on its upward course. Schimmelreiterin, you are a prose poem in the making. Stimmung, seething semiotic flux, not gravid amniot. Allons-toi, fuzzy-wuzzy wavelets, horsehair in aqualune, lunaqua, chevaux de frise, Friesland, mijn platteland, Bellacqua, whetting stone, cutting cold, you are flayed alive, el desdichada, sheet and sheer mise en abîme, an eclipse, washed ashore memory, fusic pebbles, pumice, porous skin, papyrus, paille de papier, flick, flicker, the sky catches on fire, tongues of pink violet, crimson, lemon, orange, butter blue, plumes of sea green, elderflower ash, amber rain, chimeau, argent, aloi, hors la loi, loops, ululation, elation, entanglement, black sun shining bright. And the last poem is a poem in two parts, a long prose poem. I wrote it for a book which is coming out soon at Mad Hat Press. It's curated by Cassandra Atherton and Oz Hardwick. It's called Dancing About Architecture. The doors. 1. The house rocks like a boat tugging at its moorings, inner weather gusty. We are playing dead fish. Mark Parks, head on a plate, regards me. I stare back. I'm gone with the wind, gills and fins fluttering. Disappear the golden orb spinning its silk threads in cirrus clouds branching against the sky. Unstick myself from the idea of arachnophobia. and away from the fizzy spiral of sticky thread joining window pane to parse etching. The head is distorted. I disappear the shadowed eye sockets, squint. With a slight adjustment of perspective, I catch sight of an anamorphic skull. Punct time. Death brushes past. We are the ambassadors now, waiting for Godot. Maestro strides in through the lounge's butter doors, opens the baby grand's lid. Fingers scurry on the keyboard, hammers, hammer string, the floorboards shake, walls are reefs. I'm a jellyfish, starfish, rockfish, a rolling stone that doesn't know what it sways. God, ready? Nose aloft, the dog holds my gaze. Roll, left, right, turn and toss. Fur and silk ripple, passage of blazing light as the backdrop, melting butter. We are the doors now, heterodoxia unsinging the dance, Körper built. People are strange, my dog. Rock. 2. At night, when silence trembles with echoes and moonshine bobs on the floorboards, casting shards of shadow on the walls, we leave them open, the dark, the doors, to terrorize the architect who looks down upon this phantom world in ille tempore. Because all life holds its own destruction, and God is nothing but the arbitrary distinction between heaven and earth, left and right, margin and imagination. Cut, not suture, kinetic poesis, no beginning, but rhythm, repetition, spacing, caesura, difference from self, dog center, repercussion, resonance, reverberation, resounding revenance, reflection, return from within difference. Human or otherwise, we are constituted by rhythm. This caesura sentence, which gathers and segments, and which means that every single thing can be danced like a prose poem, unleashing the rules of lexis, grammar, syntax. In ruffle-reed, light, fur, and silk ripple and brush. Time is paradoxical. It falls or twists. It is as various as the dance of flames in a brazier. Here, interrupted. There, vertical, mobile, and unexpected. Because we are truly fickle matter, existing, already exiting, rocking the boat to the breath of time. Thank you.
Rocking the boats to the breath of time. Wonderful. Next, we hear from Andrew Joron, who was born in San Antonio and raised in Germany, Massachusetts, and Montana. Andrew is assistant professor of creative writing at San Francisco State University and the author of several collections of poetry. And by the way, I don't think this is completely up to date, but we've got The Absolute Letter from Flood Editions in 2018, Trance Archive, New and Selected Poems, Fathom, and Science Fiction, 1992. Andrew is also the author of Cry at Zero, Selected Prose, and Neo-Surrealism, or the Sun at Night Transformations of Surrealism in American Poetry. His poetry has been included in anthologies, including American Hybrid and Primary Trouble. His translations from the German include surrealist Richard Anders, The Footsteps of One Who Has Not Stepped Forth, and philosopher Ernst Bloch's literary essays. And Andrew has recently released a novella or novel, a science fiction novel, I think. Is that right, Andrew?
That's right. Yeah, two linked novellas, right? O0 from Black Square, John Yau's press, came out last year.
Excellent.
Yep. All right, am I on?
You are.
All right, so glad to be here with you all under the big tent of surrealism. And I was especially happy to hear that Dominique had written a book relating to John Cage, because I was thinking of performing a poetic version of John Cage's 4 minutes and 33 seconds, where the musicians just sits with their instrument silently for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. But I think that would try everyone's patience. And so I'm going to read instead poems that relate to silence. I was inspired by Charles Borges's reading yesterday, which was one continuous piece, and also Mark's reading, which was also one continuous piece. So this is one continuous piece. It's called Citations from Silence. It consists of some aphorisms of mine on silence that are contrasted with some sound-driven pieces. So I will start. Citations from Silence. 1. Blue, I blow now into the long age of language. Who goes not as guest of his own identity inside a ghost? In theory, the absolute is either a wheel or a well. What will touch teach? Eros erases errancy in an unsung tongue. Unquelled, under question, under shout, I lie low within the waves, the aves, the naves of a dreamt cathedral, my talking taking the clarity of cloud. Mocking, making, all befalls the alphabet. First silence. Silence waits for an answer. Silence, endlessly divided, equals one. Silence always means more than it says. The universal silence is open-mouthed. 2. To strum these strings is to remedy the dying chord, to read red corridors of echoic code. Sky scattered and matter mothered, I mince my meaning, a mere puppet upon the parapet. The mouth, a moth, is painted. Entering the crimson scroll, I crawl into my scrawl, intending both to rob and rub out its substance. As weeping statue of the future past, where I wear a robe of stone, a posture is belated postulate, and beauty is unbidden body. Never now, never here. Here I revise my eyes to hear the concert of the concept. To them, the theme, to us, the failed fold, the known no later than the letter, another ruse of reason. Second, silence. Silence is an attribute of something, not nothing. Silence is the presence of nothing within something. In the silence of solitude, release. In the silence of a multitude, confinement. The moon reflects the silence of the sun. 3. Forest is first. For the rest, the fired forest is fairest. By that morning, born of morning, to return to the torn. Where was I? Where will I be? What syllable is always said and unsaid, slower than silence? By the known, bone-owned thought, tone, knelling, and annulling tone. Revere these reversing rivers, emptying into their sources. Man to mean the imperfect tense of moan or moon, a measure of calm, the infinitesimal circumference of a vanishing point. One eon, dust shower, untreated voice event, introduction to time. Third, silence. Noise is original. Silence has no history. Silence cannot move or be moved. Silence can move only beyond space itself. Silence, like poetry, is neither true nor false. 4. Fact is fact, a forged object. The fears and sphering N. Father faker, the folk roar. Kissed at dusk, the sun sign, that mental disk. To the narrows, avatars of narrative. Wild unto willed, I will rot as I am wrought. My track to trick, unfit for fate, footless and left aloft, as phased phrase, the speaking of a spectre, my essay on, my unsaying of, the demon of noon. Sun, that spokeless wheel, frightens me, the color of space collapses under its weight. Fourth silence, le silence éternel des espaces infinis m'effraie. Silence needs no translation. In this, it resembles a scream. We learn to speak before we learn to be silent. Writing is the silencing of speech. 5. For the forever verb of reverb, rain, ruin, a cycle, a sickle, eyes knit what is not, white night. So soon sight unnerves, and the observer serves the obverse. Fifth silence. Ceaselessness, like silence, is always suspended at the last. Silence weighs more than stone. Zero is the mathematical egg of silence. The eye makes space, the ear makes time, the mind makes silence. 6. I tries trace the right route if and only if self falsifies, kite caught in the trees. He who looked to locked room, trace to entrance. Eyes blindness bleeds to bells, to hear the banishment of sound, to round the bound of ruined, or mirror, or mire, fire before ash. All meaning about meaning, accepted but accepted, X, cancels to reconcile. End by and end, by words, the birds of startlement, by salivating stars, salvational, the very nations end, the destinations send themselves. Sixth silence. The absolute book will be composed of citations from silence. Silence is at once immediate and remote. Its middle is missing. Noise is not the antithesis of silence, but merely its most minor modification. Silence is interior to itself. 7. The sun as sum is less than one. Verse versus its wave octave. Wrath, writhe, wreath, wraith, all cool to the call, the locality of a collective voice. A prose to bear the skin of the mind, kind beyond kind, promiscuous scar, the promise of the rose, rhyme to take, to ache, the icon of time. 7th silence. Silence is the dwelling place of speech, but speech is not the dwelling place of silence. Silence opposes nothing, yet overcomes everything. There is only one silence. Silence is a thought rather than a thing. 8. The veil of vision, the curtain of condition, invent to lie over lie, a voice as vast and as vacant as silence. One, unone, a bell or a ball turned inside out is a bowl, so the whole is held beggar-wise, no bigger than. State and statement, star and startlement, a dust to be studied as the time of time is studied, a fate fitted to the line's angelic angle, if then subjected to mood and tangle. The sentence is death, bare bones without weather, out of doubt, the way away, a window free from frame. Last silence. Neither distance nor time can attenuate the broadcast of silence. The form of silence is also the content of silence. Silence keeps its secret. Blast silence.
Yay! All right. I'm cheering for everyone here. That was Andrew Joron. What a thing, man. That was like the 13 ways of looking at silence. It's like so many things about silence. Puppet in a parapet, the weeping statues. Deep stuff. Thank you, Andrew Joron. I think this is our last reader now, is Jake Sheff, who is a pediatrician in Oregon and a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. He's married with a daughter. His poems appear in Radius, Crab Orchard Review, the Cossack Review, SurVision, and elsewhere, The Common Thread. He won first place in the 2017 SFPA Speculative Poetry Contest and Laureate's Choice Prize in the 2019 Maria W. Faust Sonnet Contest. He's also published translations of poetry and reviews of translated poetry collections. 3 of his poems appear in Contemporary Tangential Surrealist Poetry, an anthology published by SurVision Books in 2023. A full-length collection of formal poetry, A Kiss to Betray the Universe, is available from White Violet Press. Jake also has 2 chapbooks, Looting Versailles from Alabaster Leaves Publishing and The Rights of Tires. Oh, it's an anagram. I just got a SurVision Books. Yes, Jake Sheff, please. All right, Jake.
I have a suspicious feeling that Jake is not here.
I don't see him.
Oh. Aye. To Jake or not to Jake?
Damn.
Well, I'll tell you what. Cassandra, are you around? Also not. Okay. Well, do we have open micers tonight?
Of course we do.
Yay.
Well, we got
I'm an open micer, although I didn't know I was going to be.
So anyway, just let you know what we have going coming up. Next week, we are on schedule again. We have a BlazeVox show with Tiffany Troy, Michelle Glazier, Kyle Yang, Rebecca Seng, and Kelly Canday. But for this weekend, we would show our unbelievable appreciation to Tony Kitt and his cohorts at SurVision magazine, including Charles Borkus, George Calamaris, Charles Kelv, John Riccio, Clayre Benzadon, Alison Dunhill, Helen Ivory, Dominique Hecq, Andrew Joron, and Jake, who didn't show up, and myself. And I think to kick off our open mic, we'll do a little switch up. We'll ask Bob to read first. How's that, Bob? Bob's gone? Has Bob gone, Cindy? All right, well, you're, oh, there he is, I see him. You there, Bob?
Looks like Bob's gone.
I can see him in the participants thing.
I don't see him on the screen here. Let's see.
No, right.
Let me try to ask him.
Weird. Ta-da!
All right, Cindy, you're up. Let's go with Cindy.
Oh, do you want me to read?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. First of all, I want to say that I'm sorry I wasn't here yesterday. I had a big meeting with my lawyer because the badass Brooklyn poet, every once in a while needs a lawyer. But I did catch the recording today, and I thank Cassandra for reading Inner Life with Sabotage. She did a great job with her Australian accent. And I should note, since Jeff Wright is here, that he's the one who originally published that poem, and he nominated it for a Pushcart Prize, my first Pushcart nomination. So thank you. And then it ended up on the Best American Poetry blog. So that poem sort of got around. Now this poem, fittingly enough, was published in SurVision. Thank you, Tony. And it's one of my alliterative poems. And I've probably read it a dozen times here, but I'm going to read it again. It's called D is Not Only for Dada, like that bookmark has behind it. Disco is decidedly dead, and so is democracy. Dystopian day dawning. Destination, darkness, my darlings. Would you do it with Dylan? Dilly-dally with Dolly? Dalliances with Dickinson, Doolittle, Donne, and Desnos? Drop drawers with Da Vinci, or double dip with Degas, even though they're defunct? Dance dirty with De Gaulle, even though he's deceased? Do-si-do with the devil, then do the downward dog on your derriere and doze deeply? Did you dig howdy doody in your heyday? We decent do-gooders and daydreamers are damned, disgusted, and disgruntled with this diseased and dysfunctional domain of dimwits, dodos, dopes, dorks, dullards, dunces, and dangerous dumbcoffs. Okie dokie, Daddy, let's depart Dodge City and drive to Denmark. And don't you dare discuss a defense for the dastardly Donald who did so much dreadful damage to our daily discourse. Don't do that. Don't even. Oh dear, this dinky ditty is definitely done. Thank you.
Cindy, I'm back. I've been listening to everyone in the car. I'm so sorry. The cat had to have an injection for his eye. He's all good, but it's like, oh, why do all these things happen on a Monday morning? Cindy, your dulcet tones, amazing. Love it. Love everything you do. I heard you talk about the piece in Best in the blog that I mangled, but at least I paid tribute to you.
You didn't mangle it at all. Sounds great.
We can have an argument about Cindy and I argue about how to pronounce things because we have yogurt and all kinds of things. So I love hanging out with Sin. But I think we're up to the last open mic. Bob from his kitchen, if I'm not wrong, and Bob is
no. We still have Tony has a video to show us of John's work.
Oh, sorry, I've jumped the gun because I saw Cindy.
Sorry,
and I know
Jake's work. Jake Sheff. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I totally spaced out that Jake wasn't going to be available, and that he has some video. Can you play that, Tony?
Awesome.
I can, yes. Can you cast my screen?
Yeah, he needs to be made co-host first.
Right, when shall I start? Can I start now?
Hold on. Wait a sec.
He should be able to, yeah.
Okay, you should be able to share the screen.
Portland, Oregon. My name is Jake Sheff.
Nope. It's not working.
I can hear it, but I can't see it.
I see that Tony's not a co-host. Doesn't he need to be a co-host to share screen?
I turned share screen on. You should be able to.
Okay.
Well, I'll try again.
You've got to click when you play it. You've got to click on the screen that's playing it so that you can share it with us.
Click on the screen.
Well, what's coming up when you press share screen? What comes up?
Oh yeah, Tony. There's a little green. There's a green icon on the bottom that says share screen, If you click on that, it'll bring up a bunch of windows about the various different things that you can share, and then you click on that and it should be able to share it with us.
Share screen. Oh, yes. Screen. See.
Yep. There you go.
Good evening, Oregon. My name is Sheff. It's a pleasure and real honor to be here at the Balm poetry reading tonight. A lot of extremely talented writers have participated in the past, and several heroes of mine in poetry have as well. So really excited to be here, and it's an honor to do so during the SurVision poetry readings. So just want to say thank you. And without further ado, I'll start reading my poetry. The first one I'm going to start with is a prose poem that was originally published in the Prose Poem Project. This poem is called The Inherited and the Earned. A black cloud dominates this black field. The land was my father's. He walked into it and stood in the middle till the wind eroded him away. Now it's mine. Here on my front porch, the wind knows where I stand. From here I watch tornadoes without fear, without remorse. I'd run out there and dig till my hands hit my father's face if I needed more. If a room or box was left behind locked, and he had a key in his pocket, I did. If he held in his fist a last letter intended to be delivered or not, I dig. But inside, my wife sleeps. Some nights moonlight breaks through to the field, and we are awakened by crying. We check the baby, always sound asleep. But she takes him up in her arms still, touching his lips to the milk on her breast. This next poem was originally published in the journal Levitate, and this one is called Men Preparing the Interior of a Public Dream in Armor with a Page. If Florence calls from Florence, aching rain will fall inside. Rambunctious woodwinds pounced on endless entrances. They're pouring pain on them like money-grubbing hippies. Pounded for getting lost, the page pulls out a Pop-Tart. A waterfall psychology and dream of drying up will decorate the top part where teeth are floating in its mouth. Go dream that that too has a use, forgetting we are watching like a weird moon. Heaven's fireproof safe this year? The men are sillily on guard with forceps. Time is cleverer in here too. Takes 4 sips of reproducing recalcitrance. The past is peachier than peaches here, the public sings. Now you sing. This next poem originally was published in Red Coyote. It's a 2-part poem. It's got the poem, which is called The Private Sun, and then reader's comments. A private sun. What is going on behind the sun when all the people here mistake regret for crisis? Inebriated thorny men and wishy-washy monitors. Prolific, they shout to the sunny ear of God, promiscuous itself, while soldiering to France, America, and Mars. The sun that took up arms was by no means against the Oort cloud, but would you have me a castrato was, for all intents and purposes, never answered. And now the mangroves prove that death is the premier mortician. Hitherto, the fakery of bobolinks was adequate, at least for tomboy sunlight and the oven domicile of bacon. The land was canalized by Naki rays, that much is certain, but nobody expected the sun to rise in its kind of daddy's roses, not a generalist among them. I guess the moral is, our sun belongs in jail, our jilted sun, in gelatin, and gone. Reader's comments. Jeff from Oklahoma says, that pruny sun is nothing but agitprop, uncouth. I'd like to judo flip it. but Netflix. Little Ann from Tyra says, humility would do that son some good, or maybe reimbursing me for all the men I've lost. A whippoorwill from Autumn's cleavage says, I knew the son a priori. He was a nice guy before he hit it big. The son's response, you try and troubleshoot a frenzy while improvising a Blue Ant Hills plumbing and not repine. This next poem originally came out in Brushfire. And this poem is written in sapphic stanzas. It's called Human Nature's Telegram to Russian Bots. And I opened this poem with 2 epigrams. For legends attract the very best in our times, just as ideologies attract the average, and the whispered tales of gruesome secret powers behind the scenes attract the very worst. Hannah Arendt, The Origins of Totalitarianism. He was ruled by those he ruled, putting favorites first, he lost favor. Luis Vaz Camus, the Luciad. Apologies if I butchered the Portuguese pronunciation. Dying of exposure, just like a finished product, pie is changing its value, sir. Stop. Pain and difficulty are quiet people. How can that be, sir? Stop. I-thou relations with hypospadias correspond to music and treason, sir. Stop. You know everything, sir. Stop. Future novel titles and memories are at home in dreams, but profound creation craves destructive sadness, sir. Stop. The purple ocean spray gets richer, according to my sources, sir. Stop. Voices, furniture, when you sing, they come to life, sir. Stop. Your lips are my hospital. Their words are more like daggers than scalpels, sir. Stop. Weather permitting, ridicule means laughing like bullets. Flannel hills and heads too full of paintbrushes, sir. Stop. Fears had one too many sex-crazed tertulias, almost subjective to the point of madness, sir. Stop. This piss test is a puff piece, sir. Stop. You heard it here first. Man's ambition, waltzing Matilda on crop circles in fields of mental oats, sir. Stop. Your permissions, purple skies, and prejudice are slow going, sir. Stop. Faith is non-binary and sentences by Henry James, sir. Stop. The next poem originally came out in the ecology issue of Quarty. This poem is called The Snow Line in Devil's Punch Bowl. It also starts with a short epigram. Winter's not just any old albino tyrant, by an anonymous soldier. These white furs know their audience, above the town of Pear Blossom, where the rattlesnakes keep a low profile. The rattlesnakes keep their cold snap a secret, but winter storms deliver winter's jail from peaks to colder pines. These white furs know their audience's unresolved disputes with narcissism. The Joshua trees move like old men with bursitis. The chasm down below drinks the snow line, floats atop a flame like a white water lily. Exaggerating illness for attention, birds bribe death to leave with strangely repetitious wishes. These white furs know the house I keep my heart in, duly know my beard of vicious dreams. Willows spread the word, the trace amount of sufferings in the wind. 2 bighorn sheep go down the chasm slope to drink from winter's missing persons bureau, time's artistic temperament. A network of arteries and veins grows into thin air, like invisible lines of insects deserting love. These white furs watch the tomb of narcissism creep into a squirrel. Lastly, I'd like to read a poem of mine from this excellent anthology. I'm sure other poets have read from it. The Contemporary Tangential Surrealist Poetry and Anthology, edited by Tony Kitt. This one is a rhyme squared. It's a form I invented several years ago, where it's two stanzas and the two rhymes, or the two stanzas essentially word for word rhyme. They're almost like a sonic mirror image of each other. Why tamper with the spectral spoil? The string was hung above the ground, 31 inches long and 31 inches high, below the compost pile, and under that, a primum non nocere agreement between the celibate intensity and verruciform phantom network. My skin like microfiche, this property anathema to lithium, Athena, random miracles. The 7 1s and 7 0s ran above, retaliation's form of libel. The postal industries, falsetto trait in mime. The ground's gung-ho astringent, like a 13, cinches the quotidian by its 1 in 30 piles of shortened curlies. In under, nociceptors, agriculture's double-ply phenomena, in tandem with celebrity intestines, the skein of net worth cruciform. The micro cliche improperly ties Lythram to the enemy, the anthem in the killer mirror's ransom. The 7 1s and 7 0s farm retaliation. Run aground these billy-do encrusted minds of tried and true. Thank you so much for allowing me to read my poetry tonight. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your evening and weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. And now back to you, Cassandra.
Yay! Okay, well, John Wessex, he's been the hero of the day. He's saved the mute world. He's done many things, but one of my favorite things he does is a brilliant open mic. So John, my lifesaver, what have you got for us?
Oceans of udders dripped on the blanket while air rustled tamarind trees. Chekhov drank a Thai iced tea and plummeted out of this poem. A flock of circles twittered in the hacksaw bushes, rasping songs from lavender throats. The birds feasted on hullberries, stale bread cruxes, and old coffee filters. The flummox jammed his body against the plow. By midnight, Kurtz reached Botswana, where King Leopold of Belgium quaked in fear against the African sun's sour light. Native rebellion spilled flesh over Victoria Falls. After hacking illusions with dream blades, the New York Times offered 25 rusted words on page 3. And I'm going to try to run a fiction open mic in about an hour and 20 minutes. The information is in the chat in case anybody would like to join us. Thanks.
I'll come. Can you email me though? Because I'm really bad with like cutting and pasting from the chat. So John, send me the link because I do have a break between now and my first budget meeting at university. You always make me hungry. You know all about the most exotic fruits. You got the tamarind tree in there, but you did mention iced tea, and I have to say my favorite is the Long Island iced tea. But I was going to ask you, like, do they drink Long Island iced teas in Long Island, or is it like the Danish that's not called a Danish in Denmark?
You know, the real question you should ask, is there really any tea in a Long Island iced tea?
I hope not. That's the answer.
There isn't. Oh,
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Linda, give us your beats today. Linda's always got, not beats as in beetroot, but beat as in beatbox. Linda.
Okay, I'm going to stick to just, you know, so I don't know if it's surreal, it's beat poetry, it's poetry. So it's a spin on the word pale. Pale is not her preference. Purposely quoted, her proposal is not a perfect request, nor is it possible to fulfill. She chooses beige, a muted tone, offsetting other purposeful choices. Purple looks like what one professor expected, albeit repugnant. Again, she ponders practical applications that contrast, not perpendicular to her original. Are there possibilities to explore? This calls for preponderance. She pores over millions of choices, knowing it's painstakingly worthwhile. Convinced of her inability to pass as professional, she remembers colors, not desirable, moldering feathers pinioned behind pastel birds, persnickety posers roosting high up in palm trees in places like Panama, Pebble Beach, and Panopolis. Half-heartedly, she presumes pale will be passed on as eggshell, ivory, bone, alabaster. Yes, alabaster will get her to fulfillment, which is reminiscent of infancy, her primordial pale. That's it.
Loved it. Oh my goodness. I love your alliteration in that in particular. Like anyone that can get persnickety into a poem is like fine by me. I love it. I loved all the P's in there. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Adam, you're up next. I believe you were host of Lip Balm for a while when I shut my computer to go to the vet. So who knew that you had a new role? Are you around to read Selling Forest in the Open? Adam, hang on, I got to ask you to unmute, I think, or someone does.
Yeah.
Yep,
This
yay.
is a poem
Thanks.
from a collection of mine that came out a couple of years ago. It's called Lelia. It's on Chax Press. It's my first really serious major collection in about 25 years. So I had 3 publishers go broke after they accepted this for publication, the book that is, in earlier versions. Anyway, this poem is called Connected. Last of all, by air, ceaseless tide, running the channel of my windpipe in and out of the lungs' weedy pools, by microbial traffic filling every pore, billions living between my own big nucleated cells, those self-replicating precision machines, like mice in a factory. Vast migrations through my gut, two-way infiltrations of my skin, not just by the bacteria, whose genius is multitude and mistake, coating me inside and out, but viruses, bees of RNA pollen, bring news from everywhere, from back down my own short species twig of the bushy tree of life, then past apes, lemurs, tree shrews, amphibians, fish, trilobites, segmented worms, to the archaea building towers around volcanic vents in the deep hot crush of oceans 3 billion years ago. Enabling me to know this, the intricate lichen folds of my neocortex connect with the great invisible forest, language, the semiotic multiverse, through ears, eyes, and finger touch on this machine to planetary networks, and before all else, the quantum fields that are every atom, boson, lepton I consist of, trading light and spreading out to the ever-vanishing horizon of the universe, with diminishing odds of me being anywhere but here, alone in a house in the desert.
Wow, thank you so much. Language, the semiotic multiverse. What a wonderful poem. Thank you so much for reading in our open. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, I was delighted to do so. Yeah,
Excellent.
I got word of this of that because Andy Joron is a very old friend of mine. So when I get a chance to hear him read, I always will, and it's delightful to encounter the rest of you as well. It makes me very happy to know this kind of poetry is continuing, and not just in the United States or in any one country, but everywhere apparently, and that's a wonderful thing to me. So this evening has been a joy. Thank you very much.
That's what we hope Lip Balm is for everybody. That's why we keep doing it. So it brings joy. But the thing that brings me joy is ending an open mic with Bob, because Bob, there are very few people that can really encapsulate something like Bob's information. One week he sang for us. You never know if it's going to be long or short. You're not sure. And it throws us all into a quandary until we hear his words, and then they crystallize for the rest of the day. So Bob, I've given you a wrap up twice now, no pressure. But Bob is going to read. I mean, Cindy, I feel weird you're not reading second last, but I did love you. So I will throw to Bob from his kitchen.
Okay, I was going to read something new, but I decided instead to read something that's over 40 years old. That was written in 1977, which was actually how long I've known Jeff, because we met at a reading at Greenwich Books. back in 1977. The instant. The instant in which the target becomes the stadium and your arrow flowers in its flight that now will never end, but roars and roars and roars. And the hats are thrown into the air and you are given the ears wrapped up in a piece of blue silk that turns out to be the sky when it is viewed carefully in the mirror. Thank you.
That's how you do it. I throw my hat in the air to you, Bob. Amazing. Thank you for ending the open in such a classy, Bobbish way. So, Mark, back to you.
Well, thanks. And thank you all for being here tonight to this wonderful read. Don't forget, we got the BlazeVox show next week on Saturday. So join us for that. In the meantime, I'm going to close out with something called In the Alley Behind the Cafe. In the alley behind the cafe, they met, the sub-manager and the accountant. In among the dumpsters, they kissed, scraps of plastic, steel shavings and twine twisted at their feet. He elbowed her, she elbowed him. In a word, they were at each other's mercies. They were both mercenaries at heart, finding a way to unwind their tightening souls, one dribble at a time. Here too, the general manager met her own lover, a man with no eyebrows and a moustache. They would huddle close under the escape stairs, under the air conditioner, also one dribble at a time. If only briefly, theirs was a moment of sighs. Then too, the vice president of public affairs and his lad squeezing themselves into oblivion under the water tank. He was a big man, and his name was quite a mouthful. And there was the president and his crew. He's a weird one and tastes like old leather, they said. And late at night, there were cats arching their backs against the chimneys, and the soot. The pigeons plumped under the window ledges, tucking their heads behind their wings as if they had something to hide. And not least of all, in a great display of superiority, the lone heron, who decided to nest on the water tank, on the dome of the roof. Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful night. Thank you, SurVision. Thank you, Tony Kitt. Thank you, all your readers. Hope to see you next week. Love you. Love and poetry. Bye.
Good night.